Today, August 23rd, as declared by the United Nations, is proclaimed as the International Day for the Remembrance of the Slave Trade and its Abolition. Many ceremonies and festivities around the world will happen today to acknowledge the tragedies of those lives of enslaved peoples who suffered and endured the transatlantic slave routes, commencing off the coast of Western Africa and carried across the globe, mainly to Europe, the Americas, and the Caribbean. As we are doing our part as Canadians to honor and remember the many sacrifices of individuals like Viola Desmond, Joshua Glover, Marie Joseph Angelique, and many more whose stories are untold and simply not taught in our school system. We also honor those lives who fought against injustice, like the abolitionist First Lieutenant Governor of Upper Canada, John Graves Simcoe. Remember the 400's goal is to unite those descendants of enslaved people and our allies globally in the month of August as our Freedom Month. We work tirelessly to heal the racial divide and learn or uncover more about our past atrocities and contributions to society made as a whole, so that we can now teach future generations to come. This has been the mission of the founder, Shadrock Porter, for many years, and I am, as president of Remember the 400, happy to continue in his legacy. I would especially like to thank the efforts of Mayor John Tory for proclaiming, yes, absolutely, the month of August in 2019 as Emancipation Month, and continuing to do so thereafter. As descendants of enslaved people, 2019 marked a significant time in our history. Although 400 years later, the shackles of mental slavery and its effects still plague our society today, despite our physical freedom. This year, after the removal of the COVID-19 restrictions, many of us, like myself, had the opportunity to learn about those enslaved people history at various Toronto museums and festival events throughout the Greater Toronto area. That is a nod even to Cheryl Blackman. Thank you. It is a beautiful feeling. As a Canadian, I'm incredibly proud of the House of Commons for coming together in March of 2021 to establish and recognize August 1st as Emancipation Day. For me and many others, it is an integral part of our history, of how our ancestors came to be free and to identify individuals such as William Wilberforce, who dedicated most of his life to abolishing slavery. I want to thank Senator Majid-Jarari and his colleagues for relighting that torch so that August 1st is acknowledged throughout all of our country, Canada. As we raise the flag today, I will stand tall as a proud Canadian in truth, honor, remembrance, equity, and hope that freedom will continue to reign in our beautiful home of Canada. May this ceremony be emulated throughout our provinces, cities, and towns every year in respecting those lives who endured and suffered for our freedom today. Thank you. I would like to ask that you please give a round of applause for the founder of Remember the 400, Shadrock Porter, as he approaches the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to embrace your presence. You're beautiful people. Ladies and gentlemen, my friends, family, and to my mayor and political colleagues and supporters of this great city of Toronto, greetings to his most holy name. May the God of our fathers watch over us on this very important day. Some may look at us today, raising this peace, this flag today as a group of unimportant people just raising a piece of designed cloth. That means nothing to the world, and the present day situation in which we find ourselves in. But if you look closely and carefully at this piece of design cloth, you will notice it is covered with purple and the words written in red, white, and blue. The colors of the forgotten people, that there is a black image representing them and a broken chain, the sign of their freedom. This piece of design cloth, in which we can now call our symbol of recognition, that now represents us as a nation within a nation. This flag is a symbol of our humble beginning, a symbol of our determination to survive, and we do hope that the mistakes that we have made in the past and the horrible things that has happened to our ancestors during slavery will never be repeated. A plight that started not only here in the so-called New World, but started in Africa. This flag says it will not be repeated. This flag being raised here today in an area of global and significant power will someday be recognized as a significant part of that power, and the entire world will recognize its ownership, and we will be forever proud of the contribution that we as a people have made to create such power. We are slowly, very slowly, regaining our consciousness. We are regaining our consciousness of self. We have sacrificed and lost our own culture, our dignity, and most importantly, we have lost our own religion and our God. All of them have been taken away by those who had the power over us. For 400 years, we have lived under the umbrella of others. We have been kept away from our own original way of life, whatever that was. But thank our God, we survived. Because some of us survive, we will show the world that we are not an ungrateful set of people. We will love to take this opportunity to thank those who some had forgotten because of the color of their skin. The American revolutionary, Mr. John Brown, who gave his life and sacrificed his own family that we may live. Mr. John Simcoe, I made a play about John Simcoe. I wrote it once, and it was a very, very successful piece of dramatic presentation. The Englishman, Mr. William Wilberforce, who stood in the English Parliament and became our voice. And all of the Quakers who sacrificed their lives so that we can have our lives, even though they all had different skin color than us. It made no difference. It made no difference at all to them. Today, the one we now enjoy is our freedom month as we stay here to enjoy this time years ago when slaves arrived in Virginia. We celebrate that. There is a question on everyone's lips now, and that is, what's next? Well, let me tell you, we should not be sitting on our backs and our sides waiting for handouts. We should not be on our toes. We should now be on our toes prepared for tomorrow and how we can be in charge of our own future. We should not live in the past, but let the past be a stepping stone and a ladder for our future to succeed. There should be that growing need for us as a people to come together like other nations rather than fighting among ourselves for the crumbs left by others. Everyone today seems to be talking about reparation, But in order to receive it in any form, we have to be together. It will not be in any way handed out to individuals. So without that one people, one nation practice, like others have done, stop talking about it. Without togetherness, my dear friends, without togetherness, we are going to remain in our present situation forever. Today, we are remembering the past and the terrible things that was done to our fathers and our mothers, even to some of us today. Therefore, we should let the experience of slavery propel us to be a very positive example to our children. Let them not wander and wander like pigs in the mud of life. Let them have a fresh start intellectually, spiritually, and of our God's sake, mentally. We have raised a flag, or about to, in most of the countries that had something to do with our enslavement, to remind us that it was in this month of August when we were given freedom on paper and by another nation of people. Some had sacrificed their lives that we can be free from the physical chains. But today in this month, when the documentation of that freedom was written in ink, some of us are still worried that the ink had dried, and they are still waiting in the chamber of darkness, looking for themselves. But let me tell you why some of us have found ourselves. It is because we did not succumb. Why? Because we did not kneel when it was time for us to stand. Neither did we stand when there was need for us to kneel. We did not cry when there was need for us to laugh. Neither did we laugh when there was need for us to cry. We did not beg when there was time for us to give. This is the motto of our survival. It was in the mighty hand of the God of our fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Since when did the 400 years meant so much to so many, politically, spiritually, and otherwise? Why not 100? Or maybe 200? But the words were not allowed to fall to the ground. Now they know how to calculate from 1619 to 2019 and get to this most important number of 400 and the most important month of August. For this season, we are not a typical so-called bunch of idiots like some would like to label us. We are the raw materials of this world. We develop countries. We are great inventors without the title of same. We are the forgotten but brave fighters in 2 world wars, engraved in our community under the leadership of others that knows nothing really about our true way of life, whatever and wherever you may find us. Remember the 400. It is set up and organized as a transparent body like any world institution. We have a council of men and women that covers every area as any functioning government body. We have leaders not only Toronto, Canada area, but in the United Kingdom and the United States. We are now having conversations with members of the Caribbean and South American governments that they should get on this most important train of freedom for all of our people, wherever they might reside, before it is too late and they are left behind. All this is done exposing the interior part of our culture. Everything we do is supposed to be cultural. We must be prepared to climb one step at a time, even though finance will be like a tonic that we will need to consume in helping us to climb. Nevertheless, All of us need to try harder. We must learn to look at the bigger picture, the power and the glory at the top of that mountain. We as a forgotten people should determine to set the bar so high, especially and particularly the RT400, so that the light of our own personal dreams and whatever positive and powerful thoughts you as a people may have of and shine through. As we celebrate this month, this Freedom Month, in the memory of our freedom, in the memory of our fathers and our mothers, in the memory of all those who were thrown overboard, in the memory of all those who made it to the shores, in the memory of all those who made their marks, and even to all those who failed and died trying. Let the month of August continue to be our Freedom Month. With all this that I've said, I would like to leave you with your own chain of positive thoughts that should never be broken. May peace reign upon us and our families. May the Lord God of our fathers continue to shower his blessings upon all of us. And this peace I leave with you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Shadrock Porter. Please keep the applause going, and please welcome our Mayor, John Tory.
Well, good morning. Normally, I'm better organized at having the program set up in such a way that I don't follow a talk like that. But, you know, it's inspiring that you founded this organization, but your words are inspiring as well, because to found it is one thing, but to carry on with the kind of determination that you have and to do it in such an eloquent way is an inspiration certainly to me in the work that I have to do, and I'll talk a little bit about that today, but it's inspiring for us all because we have to keep those words in mind all the time. And I'm also very pleased to be here with all of you, of course, but also with my friend Majid Jowhary, who, as was said, has had so much to do as a member of Parliament with the recognition of this important month and the important day that has just passed this year, Emancipation Day. Because, you know, I'm often asked, because I go to a lot of things as Majid does as well, and for things like Black History Month or Asian Heritage Month and all, why do we have these things? And we have them for two reasons, I think, and they're both fundamentally important to our success as a pluralistic, accepting, embracing, inclusive society here that we're trying to build. The first is, it is incredibly important that we understand the history of where we've been and how people's experience in their lives and the experience of their ancestors shape who they are and who we are. And that education that happens during those months and during Emancipation Month for that matter is hugely important. But secondly, if we don't understand each other, celebrate each other, understand our differences, understand our different histories, we are bound not to be successful at making this the kind of inclusive city and country that we're, I think, very much trying to build. That's what distinguishes us when we have people around the world who want to come here. I don't think it's the weather. Believe you me, we're happy to be here again doing these flag raisings in person. I did them even during the pandemic, and when I was out here alone in the winter by myself with huge snowpiles behind me and a cold wind blowing, it was still important to recognize and respect the people we were honoring on those days. But it's better to do it here with people, and it's better to do these things because we come to understand each other just a little bit better. And when we're trying to be the most inclusive city in the world, one that people want to come to from around the world, it is incredibly important that we understand and celebrate each other, and that we prove what we often say in Canada, which we believe, and that is that differences make us stronger, not weaker. And so I also want to congratulate you and thank you, Doreen, for the work that you do on a continuing basis to make the Remember the 400 movement strong and abiding. And of course, I know it's a movement that exists not just here in Canada and in Toronto, but around the world. And I think that's very important as well. So we're gathered to commemorate and to honor the enslaved peoples of the transatlantic slave trade. And, you know, I know a lot of the time the reference was made even today to forgotten people. And I think the fact we're here indicates that they're not forgotten, and they can't be forgotten, and they shouldn't be forgotten, and they mustn't be forgotten. And we have to look at the journey that didn't end, but the journey took an important step forward when freedom and justice were those first initial steps were taken all those years ago. And this, of course, was something that led to the abolition of slavery and freed more than 800,000 people of African descent across the British Empire, probably more. But while it abolished slavery per se, work that remains to be done, work always did remain to be done from that day forward. I don't think anybody ever pretended otherwise. Black residents in Toronto, and this is the first thing that I had to do as the mayor, as the elected leader of the city, was to publicly acknowledge something that we know to be true, but when you say it publicly as the elected leader of the city, which is that black residents here in the city of Toronto and elsewhere continue to experience the after effects and the legacy of slavery, and we have to recognize that. And one of the things that's happened, it probably has to you as well, Majid, in my time in public life, is I've come to understand better and better that we're all impacted by our own respective histories. And my history doesn't include anything going back generations where anybody was enslaved in my family's life. And had it been included in my history, it would have affected me, but the people where it was a factor in the lives of their families and their ancestors going back, you know, just imagine for a minute how it would impact on your own history and what might have turned out in your own life, given what I've come to understand better, which is the intergenerational impact of these things that happen in the past. You can't change history, but you can understand its impacts and you can learn from it and learn what we have to do so that nobody ever experiences again the disrespect that went with enslavement. The trauma of what happened then can still be felt now, and I recognize that, and I think we all have to recognize that, and that is too what these days are all about. Celebrating what happened that was good, but also remembering the lasting effects that what went before had on people. And of course, this is not limited to other parts of the world. We're quite often inclined to think as Canadians or even as Torontonians that this happened somewhere else. It happened here too. And I think that's something we don't often enough remind ourselves about. You know, reference was made by Doreen about the fact that a lot of things aren't taught in school. I was a Canadian history student. We spent very little time in those days, it was a while ago now, talking about Indigenous people and what happened to them, and we spent even less time talking about the slave trade and how there were many people living in this city at that time and today who were experiencing the intergenerational traumatic impacts of the fact that an entire race of people was enslaved. And so it is an important day for us to be here today to raise the flag, and I think by raising the flag we're not just doing something symbolic, but we're committing ourselves to learn more, to educate others, to raise awareness, and to acknowledge and act on the existence of anti-black racism in our society here, and by society I mean Toronto or Canada, doesn't pick your pick. It's a time when we have to firm up our resolve to act. And the raising of the flag and standing here saying these things, for me, is a measure of commitment. And that commitment I take very seriously, and I'm committed to making sure that the voices are heard and the stories are told so that we will be galvanized into additional action. We have, I'm proud to say, done much more than proclaim Emancipation Month or raise a flag. We've created North America's first anti-black racism unit inside the city government. It's working away year after year, 4 years on now, to rebuild trust, to support Toronto's black residents, to support public servants who work inside this building who are black. And I've listened to them, something we call the Black Staff Network, and their stories of how, yes, some of them have done very well, but they will tell you they did well, sometimes in spite of the way the system was set up and in spite of some of their experiences. And we're learning from what they tell us to try and remedy those things. This is a time to challenge the norms and to commit not just to doing something, but to doing much, much better, to doing what's best, and to do what's right, to learn from our history, and that's why I'm here today. So in conclusion, I would just encourage people to read up on emancipation, to read up on slavery, to read up on what it took to get slavery abolished and what it took to bring about emancipation all those years ago. And I think that is what we should do in a city that is trying to be the most inclusive city in the world. And we're doing not too badly, better than many, but not yet good enough. And I think if we work together where we decide for ourselves that every single citizen without exception in the city is going to feel included, is going to feel a sense of belonging, is going to feel respected, is going to feel embraced, then we will have built the kind of city that I think we really want to build. We have to make sure that fairness and justice and equality are a reality for all Torontonians, and we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We've got work to do. But that is why today is important. That is why I'm so honored to be with you, and to thank you for the work that you do as part of the Remember the 400. So thank you very much.